I'm recording it now. We are recording this, and this will be recorded and put onto the project website in addition to a summary. The project website is listed up there. It's a2gov.org/South Main Water Main. All right, and then Mike, if you could forward it to the next slide.
Yep. There you
So
go.
Here's the technology overview. So at the bottom, you'll see the Q&A feature, and that's where we ask you to submit your questions. So please submit a question there, and then I'll read it out loud, and somebody from the project team will answer. For people who are on the phone, and I don't actually see anybody on the phone, but if you do have to switch to the phone for some reason, if your internet connection goes out, you can raise your hand by using *9. And then we can unmute you and you can ask a question that way. Okay, next slide. We do have a couple polls in this, and this is how you submit a poll. It's actually pretty easy. Once we have it up and running, you click on your answer and you press submit. The polls are anonymous. If you are on the phone and you do want to submit an answer, obviously you won't be able to see the polls, but if you did want to verbally give an answer, you can press *9 and we will unmute you. Obviously, you would not be anonymous in that case, but then you could submit an answer if you wanted to. All right, next slide. And so that brings us to our first poll. We do have a demographic poll, and this is completely optional and anonymous. We are doing this demographic poll because we're trying to understand who we are reaching, to help us understand who we're not reaching, to help us improve our public engagement practices. So again, this is completely optional, and this is an anonymous poll, but we do hope that you can take that you don't mind taking it to help us gain an understanding. So I'm going to leave this up for a minute, and then I'll end the polling and not even share the results with everybody. We'll just be using this information behind the scenes. We'll give it just a few more minutes. Okay, I will end this in 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. And then Mike, if you want to take it to the next slide. And then we also have Zoom meeting norms. This is just a reminder for everybody to be nice to each other, basically, and help us keep our meeting running smoothly. So with that, we ask you to commit to learning and avoid speculation. We encourage you to ask questions through the Q&A feature so we can explore the issue together. When speaking over the phone, please move to a quiet area and silence any background sounds. We want to make sure that we can hear what you're saying. We also ask that you remember the rights and dignity of others. And with that, we ask you to critique ideas, not people, and are thoughtful about your language. So this can be a comfortable and respectful forum for all present participants. Inappropriate and written or verbal comment or language, including personal attack and accusations, will result in you being removed from the meeting. So with that, is there anything that anybody would like to add to this? You can put it in the Q&A feature if you'd like. Okay. All right, well, thanks everybody. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike to launch into information about the project.
All right, well, thank you, Heather. So,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, I
one
skipped
more.
over this. Yeah, there will be meeting summaries that will be posted by March 16th at 12 noon. And your feedback is going to be considered throughout this project, in addition to technical and cost considerations for the recommendations in this project. Okay, Mike, you can take it away.
Appreciate it. So again, everyone, thank you and welcome to our first public engagement meeting for the South Main Street water main replacement and resurfacing project. We have a kind of a jam-packed agenda tonight. It'll include introductions, talk about the project limits and why we're doing this project, the project purpose and need, talk about anticipated elements that will be included in the project's work. We'll go over our project design schedule. We will talk in more detail about the planning process and how that interacts with the design. We'll talk about concerns that we would expect to encounter in a project of this nature based on our past experience doing other infrastructure projects of this type. And then we've left plenty of time for discussion and questions and answers. And, the overarching goal of that is right now, how can we do this project in a way that makes it easier for everyone? So again, plenty of time for conversation and discussion at the end of this agenda. So as I said just a minute or so ago, my name is Mike Nearing. I'm with the City of Ann Arbor Engineering Department. My title or my role is a senior project manager. My email address is listed here. My direct dial phone number is listed as well. I'm working with Heather Seifert on this project. I consider myself very fortunate to be working with her. She's very good in public engagement and interacting with the public. Heather's been with the city for several years now. Her email address is listed on this slide as well as her direct dial number. I encourage you to reach out to myself or Heather if you have any questions about what we said tonight, direction of the project, how we plan on doing this, that, or the other thing. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. One other thing I will also say is we've created a project webpage. I think Heather pointed that out to us a little earlier. It's a2gov.org/South Main Water Main. We'll probably mention that a few more times during the meeting. This presentation, a link to the Zoom meeting, the meeting summaries, etc., will all be posted on our project webpage. So all that information will be there and will be available for your review if you need to or want to. So again, plenty of ways to get in touch with us, and or at least our project webpage will have this information posted as soon as it's available. We're also very fortunate to be working with a firm by the name of Wade Trim. Wade Trim is a multidisciplinary engineering firm that's been around for a really long time. I don't know how many years, but they've been around. And so I'm truly fortunate to be working with Vaughn Martin and Carmel Tremblay. I've worked with them on some projects in the past. They've done other work for the city. Two very talented and highly professional engineers that are an excellent addition to our team. And I think you will find as this project goes on that they are excellent resources as well. So getting right into the project and the discussion. So our South Main Street water main replacement resurfacing projects limits are Huron Street to East William Street. We will also be working along the side streets of Washington, Liberty, and East William, east and west of South Main Street, just far enough to allow us to tie the water main into these side streets and to keep future work out of South Main Street. So the goal of this project is to kind of get in here, get this work done, do what we need to do, get out and not come back for a very long time. We recognize how vital South Main Street is to Ann Arbor, and we want to do all we can to preserve and protect that as part of our work. One caveat to that is during the design process, and as we study this area and as we work, or as we design, we may find that it's advantageous to potentially extend the limits a little bit north of Huron Street or a little bit south of East William in order to stay out of those very busy intersections and minimize, the overall level of disruption. So again, our limits are Main Street from Huron to William. As we work on the design, it may be necessary or prudent to extend those limits a little farther to the north and a little farther to the south in order to minimize the overall total amount of disruption to the South Main Street area of businesses and residents. So in a picture form, here is our project vicinity, which I'm confident you're all familiar with. So we're working from Huron to William, and then here's kind of a little bit of a closer view of that area. So here's our project purpose and need, or why are we doing this? So the water main that currently exists in South Main Street is about 100 years old. It's at the end of its service life. It appears to have several broken valves, and quite frankly, it's in need of replacement. Again, in the engineering world, 100 years for a water main is a long, long time. And so as part of our resurfacing and as part of our effort here, it's just necessary or needed to kind of replace the water main. And one of the concerns that we have is that, I mentioned broken valves. And so with some of these broken valves, it could potentially limit our ability or reduce the capacity for firefighting. And that's something that gives us a little bit of concern. Also, the surface of the street's in poor condition and needs to be repaired, before other more extreme repairs become necessary. So again, we're just trying to get out here and get in front of this before the situation becomes critical. Some anticipated elements of the project or items of work is another way to refer to them that this project would include, or we believe are part of an appropriate project. We plan on replacing the existing 8-inch water main that I said again just a minute ago is 100 years old. We plan to upsize this water main to be a 12-inch diameter pipe that meets or exceeds our future needs. As you're well aware, South Main Street is a very high density area, and capacity is definitely a need. As part of this work, we will provide improved fire flow from the new fire hydrants and improved fire hydrant coverage. We will also replace any galvanized water services that exist from the shutoff valve that's located in the sidewalk in front of the building to the water meter inside the building, where those galvanized services may still exist. And we're doing that to comply with new state of Michigan or relatively new state of Michigan criteria for the removal of lead and lead piping. As part of the work, we will also possibly install sanitary sewer leads in South Main Street to service buildings that are without proper public sanitary sewer services today. We will provide a new asphalt surface at the completion of the water main work. And we will work to ensure that all sidewalk ramps meet the current Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as ADA requirements. Again, we believe all the sidewalk ramps that are out there are currently in conformance, but we will ensure and check to make sure those are. So here's our project timeline. And when I refer to the project timeline, it's obviously a schedule, but more to the point is this is the timeline that we're allocating for the design of this project. We'll explore construction timelines in future public engagement meetings, but for right now, our schedule is kind of broken down into 4 major tasks. The first is public engagement, of which today is obviously our first public engagement meeting. We expect that to occur from about March through October of this year, 2021. The design will start approximately in April of this year, 2021, and run more or less through the end of this year, December 2021. In 2022, January through April, we will be creating the final contract documents, reviewing them, making sure everything is complete and tight. And then later in the fall of October 2022, we're kind of anticipating obtaining bids for the construction of this project. And then our fifth kind of element of the project timeline is this: when does construction begin, or the start of work? And so right now, we're just kind of anticipating spring of 2023. That's a date that's flexible. That's a date that we haven't decided on. And based on the design and other criteria that we learned from these various public engagement meetings, you know, we will kind of carefully consider when to start this project such that you know, we're minimizing disruption and trying to maximize the amount of time that we can get the project, maximize the time that we have to work on this project. So public engagement and outreach, what are we going to do? So the project team will conduct a robust public engagement and outreach program to discuss business owners and residents' concerns and needs. We will work in an iterative fashion to formulate project solutions that balance the project's needs with the community's desires. The project team will carefully evaluate the project work and determine strategies that are sensitive to the unique special events that occur within the project limits and the surrounding areas. And one way I like to kind of summarize this is, it's our goal to do this project for you and not to you. So we look forward to working with you, discussing various issues, various concerns, various design elements with you. You may have noticed from the previous slide that we haven't started the design yet, and that's a very conscious decision that we made early on, in that it's our job, it's our goal, it's our desire to talk with you about this, try and figure out solutions that work for everybody. We won't be able to implement all ideas, but we will work with you in an open and transparent way to make sure that we do the best we can with the constraints that we have to work with. What are some of the possible impacts to business owners and residents? So again, based on our, you know, doing various infrastructure problems for the last number of years, it occurs to us that this project will be extensive and time consuming. The work will unavoidably disrupt normal traffic and business operations along South Main Street and the side streets immediately adjacent to the work site. And, you know, that's just Main Street's, and quite frankly, Main Street's a narrow street. And so there's just not a lot of maneuvering space out there. So it's tight, and it's difficult to kind of work in those areas with the size equipment that we need to get in here and do what we need to do. Our planned project approach, though, is to maintain pedestrian access along South Main Street for the duration of the project's construction. We can also talk at various points in time tonight and during other other public engagement meetings. You know, we can talk about, you know, maintaining vehicular traffic and other things like that. So it's, again, our goal to work with you on these issues. It's my expectation that there will be a desire in the community to maintain pedestrian access on South Main Street during our work, though. The proposed construction will have to be carefully studied in order to analyze impacts to special events that are normally held along South Main Street within the vicinity of the project. Again, as I said before, we haven't started the design yet. And so it's not known at this time what the impacts to the special events along South Main Street will be. And as with all construction projects, there will be dust, noise, some vibrations, and inconvenience will be prevalent due to the nature of the planned construction. Again, this is a large infrastructure project, and it will require a fair amount of work from us and our contractor. Here's the important part of the meeting. You know, what do you want us to know? What's important to you? So a little bit of background about this work. We are planning to perform the project starting in 2023, as I alluded in an earlier slide. I anticipate, or we anticipate, that this work will probably take about 5 to 6 months to construct from beginning to end. And again, that assumes, good weather and other things like that. So again, a large project, impactful. It will kind of linger on for a while. And so what we'd like to know and what we'd like to hear from you tonight is, what are your concerns with performing the work, during the numerous special events that occur along South Main Street, especially from here on to William? How can we best work with or around these special events? Are there other issues that we need to consider? What are some of the other things that might be going on out there that, might not be top of mind for us right now? Do you have solutions that you'd like to suggest? We're open to ideas that make the project better, make the project more constructible, maybe even accelerate the project's construction. So, we're open to hearing, ideas. Another couple of items that we'd like to throw out there for consideration would be, should we work on the project in a segmented manner? Meaning, we could maybe work on the water main from here on to Washington, get that kind of completed, get the water main tied in, then maybe work from Washington to Liberty, do the same kind of thing, and then work from Liberty to William, and then maybe come back and resurface South Main Street all at once, or resurface South Main Street. There's other, there's different tactics that we could use. Another interesting question is, at least in our minds, is working on the weekends acceptable to complete this project faster? Is that something that interests or scares you? Do you work or own a building with an underground vault? And like when we talk about underground vaults, we talk about the kind that exist underneath the existing sidewalks and kind of protrude out into the public right of way. Not really if you have like a basement or anything like that. Do you know if your building has a galvanized water service? If so, that's something that we would need to replace that galvanized water service, as I mentioned earlier, from the curb stop box or the shutoff valve in the sidewalk all the way into your building. And that's something that we would do at no additional cost to you. Again, that's mandated onto us by the state of Michigan and some of the new rules for dealing with lead in water and drinking water. And so a final kind of set of questions are, how does your business currently receive deliveries? How often? What concerns would you have with continuity of delivery service while we're doing this work? Are there things that we can do to help, maintain or continue deliveries for your businesses?
So I think with those questions, oh, sorry, Mike.
No.
I was thinking maybe we should pause there and then see if anybody has any questions for us. And then if they have any responses to any of the questions that we have, you can raise your hand, which is at the bottom of the screen, and I can unmute you, or you can put something in the Q&A box if you have a question or if you just want to provide a comment there. Is working at night an option?
Yes, it is an option. However, it's been our experience on other projects when we have proposed or discussed working at night, others in the community have voiced objection to it. So yes, I think that's on the table, and I think that's something that we can think about and study. The only thing that I would say is when we've proposed that in the past, it hasn't been warmly received, but it is a possibility. That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that.
And Ed has his hand up. So Ed, I'm going to allow you to talk. Okay, you should be able to speak now, I think. Ask to unmute. Okay, here we go. You should be able to unmute yourself.
How's that, Heather? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Good morning, or good morning. Long day. Good evening, Heather and Mike. Ed Shaffron, thanks for putting this on. I appreciate it. I think, Mike, when at the last time when you were at the Main Street, the only avocation, I think this is obviously a well-needed project, needs to be done. We all know the pain and suffering we're going to go through. As I advocated, boy, the earlier that you can start, you know, I know January is a tough month to get started, but if it's going to be long, I like the idea that you just proposed of doing it in sections, if that's at all possible. Again, the hit's going to be there regardless. It's just trying to minimize it. And I know you folks want to do that. I know you're not there to make all our lives miserable. It's a necessity, but whatever that can be done to minimize it, I think you guys understand where our issues are.
Okay, good. Okay, Ed. Well, thanks for the question, and thanks for giving voice to that. With the segmented approach, I think that's an idea that has some merit, and so that's something that we'll definitely look at. And in our upcoming meeting, just to be a little more clear with everyone on this. So what we'll do is we'll take this input that we received tonight, and we will start to roll up our sleeves, and we'll start to kind of sketch up options, and we'll start to look at all this. And so when we come back to you, and I don't know, I'm guessing 6 weeks or something like that, let's just say, we'll have some more ideas, and we can look, and we'll be able to look at what does a segmented project look like, or where's the water main going to be, and we can start to flesh out some more of those ideas. So glad for you bringing that up, and we're looking forward to rolling up our sleeves and just getting started on this, and go from there.
Heather, am I still live again?
Yep, you're still live, and I see that you had a response to that.
Mike, I want to come back with you on, there was a comment made by another Main Street property owner, whether or not you received it. Since you are putting in a water main, obviously a number of buildings do not have sprinkler systems.
Right.
Does it make sense, to at least provide the 4-inch tap and bring it out so that in the future, when somebody needs to do a water tap, we're not tearing up the entire street. Maybe we're taking it from, let's call it 5 feet from the sidewalk rather than ripping up the middle of the street. I realize that's an added cost, but hopefully that would be to that property owner that if this is all segmented at all, if there's any, I would say assessments to property owners over and above, because I would assume this is one there's no millage, or I shouldn't say the millage, there's no assessment to the property owners for this, but extra services could be. Mike, does that make sense? Am I clear on my comment?
Yes. I mean, yeah, thanks, Ed. That question was asked, I don't know, like a week or 2 weeks ago. And I've been kind of preliminarily talking about that with, some of the important people in the organization who have inputs on that. We don't have a formal answer on that, but there are a few things that I can share with you that we've learned, or I've learned so far about this, is like the costs for these, fire service connections or fire department connections, as they're referred to, is kind of established by code. And so several of these elements are set forth in the city code itself. And so we don't have a firm answer on that yet, or we haven't really kind of fleshed out all of the issues, but we're looking at it. And again, it would be our goal to kind of minimize future street cuts and future disruption to South Main Street. So I don't have a finished answer yet, but I think that code is an important element of this. We have to get into that and research it a little more. And I guess the other element of this that kind of makes it difficult is there needs to be isolation valves between fire hydrants and these potential sprinkler connections, or these piped connections to the building. So there's several things that I need to look at, and we kind of need to think through, but we will definitely have an answer on that in the not too distant future. So it hasn't fallen off our radar screen, and we are working to answer that issue or address the issue, excuse me.
Okay, Mike, we have another. How do we determine if our has an appropriate sewer connection already, or if we qualify for a new tap?
Oh, good question. So basically, the way that works is if your building is already connected to the public sewer in South Main Street, you have a kind of a proper public connection. When I first picked up this project, I was made aware of, I think there's kind of like there's a private kind of sewer lead, or maybe a smaller diameter sewer that's running down the alley behind west of Main Street. And I think there's a couple of buildings that are connected off that. So that would be an example of kind of a building that's not connected, excuse me, to the city's sanitary sewer. Those would be buildings that we would think would be required to hook, or would want to hook to a new service lead in South Main Street.
And we have another question that is, will businesses, residents lose water for significant amounts of time?
The answer to that is a qualified no. And the no comes in because everybody's different. Everybody has a slightly different version of what a significant amount of time is. As we're transferring water services from the old main to the new main, and as we're doing water shutdowns to tie in the water mains at various locations, you know, there will be a disruption in water service. Those water main tie-ins take, you know, anywhere from maybe 4 to 6 hours or so. Some can be done a little sooner in less time. And so those will be scheduled with you in advance, typically at least 48 hours in advance. And if you're a business, if you're a restaurant, we clearly understand that that's a very important thing to you. And so, you know, we'll be working to identify those needs and those times. And that's an example where working at night might be an absolute necessity. Like some of these shutdowns that we might need to do along South Main Street, especially, you know, one area that really comes to mind is between Huron and, between William and Liberty. I know there's several restaurants in that area. So we would be working with you, and those might be areas where, you know, we would do shutdowns at night in order to minimize those disruptions. And so from an engineering standpoint, I don't believe you would be out of water for a significant amount of time. But if you're in business, you may consider that answer slightly differently. But we will be working with the property owners and scheduling these water main shutdowns well in advance. I hope that answers the question.
Yep, Sandra says thank you.
Okay. And again, and I not to dwell on that too much, but again, during the design, as we come to other meetings, I think we'll have a better idea of what we're kind of able to talk about and timeframes and some other stuff like that. So again, more to come on this. But again, I think it's important, and I think we recognize that, you know, a restaurant, for example, without water really can't be a restaurant. So we're trying to be sensitive to that, and we will do our level best to work with you.
I don't see any other hands raised or questions right now. So if people don't mind, I'm going to launch these 2 polls, if that's okay with you, Mike.
Yeah, I'm here to serve. So
Okay.
however I could be helpful.
All right, so these are just 2 polls based on the questions that we asked. The first one is, should we work on the project in a segmented manner? So if you have an opinion about that, it's a yes or no poll, then please give us your thought. Okay, 5 more seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll and then share results. Looks like yes, yes took it.
I don't think I've ever seen a poll in Ann Arbor with 100%, 100% agreement.
Wonderful.
That's good.
All right. Okay, and then the second poll is weekend work, about whether we're working on the weekend. Is working on the weekends acceptable to completing the project faster? And I see that there's a typo in here, so I apologize for that, but hopefully you understand the meaning of the question. Do you prefer us to work on or do you care if we work on the weekends to get the project done faster? So again, it's a yes or no poll. Okay, give us 10 more seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So mostly yes, 80% yes, but 20% no.
Okay. Interesting.
Did anybody have any additional thoughts that they wanted to add to that? No, I see Ed has another question. I'll unmute you.
Okay.
And then after that, it's Tom.
Might come back with delineating third-party contractors doing work for the lack of better words, in conjunction with what you're doing. For example, you said sewer service, you're doing water service. Obviously, coordinating that going to be pretty important.
Correct.
If I wanted to provide for that sewer service, for example. Because obviously if the ground, if the hole is there, it certainly makes it a lot easier, but I recognize, are the folks that are doing the work available for third-party work, or would be a separate, well, first of all, again, these guys are doing water. I don't know if they do sewer as well. Would they be the party to contract with? Is that going to be, and I realize you may not have those questions and the answers to those, but those are just toss outs.
Yeah. That's a good question, Ed. And I guess what I would say is, our, quote unquote, our contractor, the city's contractor doing the work, let's just say we build sanitary sewer leads to certain buildings that, maybe don't have, their sewer lead connected to the public sewer in South Main Street. So we would go to a logical termination point with that sewer lead. And then, getting from that logical point into the building, depending on what the building owner's needs are, it's possible that contractor would then, you could strike up, or a business owner could strike up an arrangement with that contractor. It's possible that the business owner, it's possible that the business owner could hire their own contractor to kind of come in there and kind of take over from where our contractor left off. And so with a question like that, what I would say, because I think this is a unique kind of a special circumstance, especially with the sewer leads, because I think there's some other extraneous things that can play into this. Like, for example, like if a building has a vault and the vault's kind of in front of, the building or to the Main Street side of the building, depending on where the plumbing is inside the building and some other things like that, there could be some interesting choreography to go from the sewer lead that we leave to inside the building and, working with that property owner. So I guess what I would suggest is, if you're a building and if you think that you might have kind of one of these, you might be a building or a business that needs or wants a new sewer lead out to the Main and South Main Street that the city will, help deal with. Contact us and let's talk about it. And it might be possible to, work arrangements into the contract to coordinate and to manage a third-party contractor, for example, or, we could give you the name and the contact person of our contractor, and potentially you guys could strike up an arrangement. So I would say that's something that it's really hard to answer at this level. But if you're a business in that position, come and reach out to us, and we can figure out what we can do to to facilitate the arrangement, so to speak.
And then Tom has a question, and Tom, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Tom Murray from Connor O'Neill's, and
Okay.
I'm like Ed, I'm also on the Main Street board. I would reinforce Ed's earlier statement where, start the earlier the better. I think we've noticed we've had milder weather in January, February the last few years. So,
Sure.
as far as digging up in that, I'm sure you could save some time. As far as the weekends go, from a retailer standpoint, most of the restaurants and retailers, I would say, do most of their business Friday, Saturday, Sunday throughout the week.
Correct.
So working on the weekends would really interrupt our business flow. You'd actually be better doing longer days on a Monday or Tuesday when it's the quietest time of the week for many of the businesses downtown. That's just from a business perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I have another question too, though. As
Yes.
far as the galvanized services from some of these older buildings, which is
Yes.
ours would be one,
Okay.
is there an opportunity to increase the size of the line coming in? Because I know most of these water lines were put in, 100 years ago, or
Yeah.
and the lines aren't sufficient based on the change of business over the years. So would there be an ability there to increase those service lines coming in from the sidewalk?
Yeah, Tom, I believe the answer to that is yes. The kind of quote unquote standard size water service in the city of Ann Arbor is a 1-inch. And so, depending on your business, depending on your needs, it's not uncommon that, we could put in a 2-inch copper pipe or something, which I would believe that, for most of the businesses, without doing a lot of engineering, is probably appropriately sized. So to answer your question, I think the answer is yes. When you start, the kind of the catch would be, once you start getting into like 4-inch ductile iron water services and larger, that becomes somewhat of a special consideration. Now, again, it's not that we can't put that in. It's just there could be some additional costs associated with that. So again, that would be something that we'd be more than happy to talk with you about during the design phase. We'll kind of take note of this, Tom. And I think as we get moving in the design, this is something that we can reach out or contact each other and kind of talk about in more detail. But the answer to your question is yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Right, any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll have another moment at the end where you can ask questions or provide a comment.
Okay. All right, excellent. Okay, so expect me. Next
Mhm.
slide. So, all right, here's an interesting slide that we created. So again, we recognize that during this process and during this project, getting the word out that Main Street is still open for business is important. And we clearly recognize that. And so one of the ideas that I had is, would some of these, like, these are kind of referred to in the business as portable changeable message signs. And, one of the things that I think we're thinking about is, putting some of these, at the beginning and the end of project. And, these are programmable, as the kind of the name suggests. So the messages can be changed, the messages can be varied, sometimes these are really nice tools, and they're dynamic tools to help get messaging out. And so as you walk away from the meeting tonight, kind of think about this and think about, are there things, what can we do to help, get the word out about this project? The one thing I would say we'd kind of like to stay away from is all these little kind of specific signs that say so-and-so's business is open or this business is open. Just because those get kind of overwhelming at a certain point in time. Not saying that it's impossible or anything like that, but maybe something that's kind of more global and has, maybe a little broader reach might be something. And again, just think about it. And, we can, again, talk about this in more detail as the plan starts to evolve. But we think, again, sharing messaging is a very important tool to a successful project. Okay, so again, are there any other things that we might have missed, things that I didn't quite cover in enough detail? Be more than happy to spend some more time on that if necessary.
I don't see any other hands raised or questions coming in right now, Mike. So I guess I would just say, if anything comes to you, then please contact Mike after this meeting.
Mm-hmm. Please do.
Tom, you have your hand up. Is that left over from before? Did you?
No, actually, I had another question.
Okay,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Would, you said it was up for discussion, delaying it. Obviously, many of our businesses, are suffering really significant times right now. And is it realistic? We pretty much probably aren't going to have this year to rebound, and 2022 will be hopefully our first year to rebound. Is it under consideration to delay it even further, another year, or would it be?
Well, we're as staff, we are not as well. Actually, the project was originally slated to be built in 2022. I think we kind of pushed it back a year.
Mhm.
So at this point, Tom, as staff, we are kind of tasked with moving forward with construction in 2023 in some fashion. So I've learned in my career never to say never, but at this point in time, we believe 2023 is a good year. Again, understand the impacts that COVID has wreaked on all of us. And I guess what I would say is, let's talk about this more as the design progresses, and let's see what the design looks like, and let's see what some of the maintaining traffic strategies or the construction strategies are. And let's just kind of keep an open mind and let's talk about it. Again, we're arguably 2 years away from the start of the project potentially. So I think it's a question that's a valid question, and let's just kind of keep it in our back pockets and see how this process moves forward.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we have a question from Joyce. So Joyce, I'm allowing you to talk. Oops, here we go.
Thank you. I'm just wondering about the cost of this. Do
Mhm.
the building owners, are they tax assessed for this? Are the renters tax assessed for this? Who pays for it?
The cost of the project, that's a great question. The cost of the project, Joyce, is like the water main replacement is being funded through the revenues generated through your water, through your water bills and your sewer bills. So the city is basically paying for the water main replacement. And similarly, the resurfacing of South Main Street is being paid for through the street resurfacing millage. So I guess we can say we're all kind of paying for it through the expenses that we already are incurring. So there are no additional costs or no special assessment costs, potential, with the exception being for the sanitary sewer leads to some of these buildings. Those costs are in the past been assessed to the property owners. But other than that, this is kind of a project that really doesn't have a lot of out-of-pocket costs associated with it, or different or new out-of-pocket costs associated with it, I would say. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up or questions coming in.
Okay. Well, excellent. Well, again, if you do have questions, don't be shy and raise your hand if something comes to you in a couple minutes. We're almost done. So let's just take a minute or two to talk about next steps. So one of the other things that we want to do, because sometimes these, things become more real when we're out in the field and we're talking. And so one of the things we also wanted to do is schedule a few what we called walk and talks, where we kind of review the project site up and down Main Street. If somebody has a particular question, for example, about how the construction could impact this or that or another thing, like, I don't know, the planters that exist on South Main Street, is just something that comes to mind. We can talk about that. And so one of the things that we're going to do is we will, if you have questions or if you have concerns, please contact me. Again, here's my email address, mneering@a2gov.org. It's my direct dial phone number. Now that, we're kind of working from home, that rings directly to my cell phone. So my phone is always on, and I typically always answer it unless I'm on the phone with someone else. So we're going to try to get the word out about these walk and talks. We'd love, the project design team and I would love to kind of spend some time out here with you. If you guys have specific questions or concerns about your building, do I have a galvanized water service? What about the sewer lead? Could we do this? Could we do that? How do we deal with getting, pedestrians or, into my building, et cetera, et cetera. It's a great time to explore some of those topics with these walk and talks. And so on our project webpage that you can find at a2gov.org/South Main Water Main, we'll put something out there about some potential times for walk and talks. Or if you have, days that are better for you, reach out. We're around and we're available. So, let us know. And again, we want to do this project with you and not to you. So, yeah, I think that kind of actually concludes the presentation that we had planned for this evening.
We do have another question that came in, Mike, and it is, can you repeat, did you say new required sewer connections will be covered in the project cost or assessed to building owners?
What I said was, if you have a sewer lead that is connected in, let's just say, the alley behind South Main Street, the construction cost associated with that sewer lead would be assessed to a property owner, or at least that's what we have done in the past, as I understand it. And so, like a new sewer lead would be something that would be considered an accessible cost. But replacing a water service, resurfacing of the street, the actual replacement of the water main, those are costs that the city incurs. And with another important element of that, with these kind of quote unquote accessible costs, those are payable over a period of time depending on the actual cost incurred. So, you know, yeah, typically they have a city code defines an assessment payback period. So again, that's something that's right there in city code, and those kinds of costs would probably or most probably be assessed to a property owner.
Okay, any other questions or final thoughts before we end the meeting? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised or questions coming in. So again, please feel free to contact Mike if anything does come up. If you have any other thoughts following this or want to try to schedule a walk and talk, yeah, reach out to Mike.
Yeah, please, yes, please do. Thank you very much. Again, we appreciate all your time. We appreciate your participation. And, you know, through these kind of sessions, we hope to, you know, make the project that much better and a little more pain less less pain for everyone. So again, thanks. Have a great rest of the evening. Thank you. Good night.